And I would love to introduce Mr. Ramprasad Akkisetti, who is the co-founder and the managing director of CCBA Designs, a firm that was established in Pune in 1995. And why I say he's a person who has, an individual who has achieved his goals through his passion is he discontinued his MBBS at the prestigious Armed Forces Medical College, Pune, midway when he was about to become ready to join the armed forces as a medical officer. And it was at this point, which was the turning point for him, his decision in his life too. And where he realized that he needed to explore more of his creative sensibility and his passion towards the creative side. And this is when he met his guru, the Harvard and MIT postgraduate and master architect Professor Christopher Benninger. The coming together of these two individuals led to the co-founding of the powerhouse of intellectual architecture, which is CCBA Designs today. Under their leadership, CCBA grew into an highly awarded firm, not just in India, but across the world. And with their works in Shanghai, Bhutan, and Africa, they have done some phenomenal work across different verticals. He has made India House, they have actually made India House into a cultural hub of creative thinking, debate, and sharing avant-garde ideas. With academic backgrounds in medicine, psychology, anthropology, Ramprasad has carved out a space for himself in the world of art and architecture, and we are absolutely honored to have him here present this keynote lecture. So with this, I would love to call him on stage. A huge round of applause for our keynote speaker of the evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, Rashmi, thank you for this wonderful introduction. I think it's beautiful to see a hall full on time. Although this is a bit rainy day and my mind says that we should be having pakoda and chai. But as much as possible, we'll try to wind up the bhashan session as soon as possible and we can interact very soon. So friends, greetings, good evening. I really like to thank Rashmi and Inderjeet for inviting me over here for this presentation. And summits like this bring all the stakeholders who are involved in office spaces or built environment and to bring the synergies together so that we come out with solutions which are not only addressing the issues of today, but they become futuristic. Friends, let me ask you a very important question when it comes to investments. I'm talking about material investment. What would be the three most important material investments of anyone's life? Any guesses? Anyone over here who could raise a hand and guess? Okay, let me make it easy for you. The three most important investments of anyone's life would be having a very good chair that you sit on, a very good bed that you sleep on, and extremely good footwear that you walk with. Do you all agree with me? Do I hear a yes? Yes. Yeah. So why? Because if you don't have a good bed, your body is not rested for 8 hours. And if you don't rest well, then there are issues with your work the next day. Your body also needs to rest so that there is a cellular repair that happens when you're sleeping, which you may not be aware. And you spend 8 hours. Just guess, 8 hours is 1/3 of your life. Similarly, when you sit on a chair, you spend about 8 hours. That's again 1/3 of your life. Have you ever thought about it? When we all work, we are sitting for 8 to 9 hours, and that's a long stretch. That's almost like 1/3 of your life or 1/3 of your day, right? Similarly, good footwear, all these things lead to issues later in the life if you don't wear good shoes or don't sit on a good chair, your spine, your posture, all kind of things. Why I'm giving you this particular background is that most of us have not been educated on where do you invest the most. I think most of us don't spend time in investing on a very good bed or a chair or a footwear. We probably spend more time on investing in gadgets and jewelry and fashionable clothes, but these are the things that you invest. Similarly, if I have to draw a kind of a parallel, where do we spend 1/3 of our life? In the office spaces, right? So the office space design is very, very vital to our well-being. And this is where we're going to talk about the role of an architect, the role of a project manager, the role of a facility manager, the developer, the person who's investing money. Everybody should come together and ask this singular question. Offices have to be designed that they lend that kind of comfort, they lend that kind of pride in the place of work, and then they lend that kind of knowledge generation that new cultures are formed. So it's very important when we discuss about office spaces. And today specifically I'm going to, through my presentation, talk about a particular aspect of office spaces, because we are not talking about just office spaces which are greenfield offices that we build and then we kind of walk into them, they're brand new and all that. The world is facing through a lot of crises, especially after the pandemic. I think we have taken a couple of steps back to rethink about what is life, what is it there to offer for us. Pandemic has made us reflective. Pandemic has allowed us to re-question the way we use, whether we need to readapt, whether we need to reappropriate everything in life, including our workspaces. Pandemic has allowed us to recycle materials. It allowed us to come out with solutions which are out of the box, right? So in CCBA, we have done one very good project. What was supposed to be a defunct factory, we have converted that into ultra modern workspace, which is what I will be showing you eventually. Now, in the times that we live in, it's very changing. Every day we come out with new technologies. Every day we hear about this has changed, that has changed. What does that mean? That we have to be very quick in adapting. We have to be flexible. We need to reinvent before even something else comes, So office spaces have to be in continual swing. They must change from this to that, adapt technology, put new systems in place. All these things should happen, at a click of a finger, So design plays a very important role. Design has to move at least 2 steps ahead of our thinking as of now. So architects must be at least few years ahead of what we are talking of today, because we have to really think about if we are designing and then building, by the time we build, the technologies have changed. New systems have come, new ways of arranging your seating systems, or new lighting systems have come, or IT is revolutionizing everything. So architects have to play a very important role and a very critical, intelligent role that they have to play. Now, as stakeholders, we all know that after a certain time, the buildings kind of dilapidate, they age out. It's just like how a human being has a midlife crisis, right? In us, the midlife crisis is maybe because of hormonal changes, right? But it's also a midlife crisis because it allows us to pause and think about what's there in future for us, and what do I need to change it to adapt to the new future that I'm going into. Similarly, buildings have midlife crisis. They age out. They are dysfunctional. They no longer become the place of pride that they were once. So we need to rethink about, if there is a building which has a midlife crisis, how do we adapt? How do we change? How do we reuse it? How do we reappropriate it? All these are questions which I'm going to demonstrate through a project presentation that we recently did in Pune, very much in Pune, which again was something which just came out of debating that do we need to tear it down or do we need to rebuild it? Do we need to kind of look into the finances? So in a way, if pandemic played havoc, it also allowed us to be better thinkers. Now, could somebody help me with the presentation? Yeah. Click onto the next slide, please. Now, I'm showing you some of the projects that CCBA Designs has put in its 30 years of services. And this is one of our pride projects, Suzlon One Earth. At the time it was built, some 14 years back, 2010, it was probably one of the only projects that was Griha 5-star energy rating, plus it was a platinum green building, large building complexes. And not only that, next slide please. This particular project, which Professor Christopher Benninger has designed and thought about, he saw all buildings are glass buildings, they are vertically going up. Why don't we make grass scrapers instead of a skyscraper? So you can see this office is more like a campus, hugging the ground. It's in a salubrious environment, and everything feels very kind of, like connected to the human scale. You could see gardens, you could see water pools and green all around. You could connect with nature while you're still working, as against you are trapped in these glass boxes that you see, which is very, very, difficult for us to consume those in the climatic conditions that India belongs to. Next slide, please. So this particular project has won several awards, and it is one of the most important landmark projects of not just in Pune but also for India, because it has allowed a new way of thinking about how an office building would be. This is about 1 million square foot, more than 2,000 people work over here with underground parking and everything. So this was one of the nicest projects that we have done. Then now I show a project which is on a very tight site, which is on Kasarwadi. I don't know if you people know, it's in Pune Mumbai highway, very close to the COEP campus. This is the Bajaj, let's say, corporate towers. And of course, it's a glass box. We were limited in the sense the client wanted to have a glass box, but we used very good glass from Saint Gobain, and then the front part had to be a retail shop where we could hang the bikes, especially back in those days. KTM bikes were very much in awe at that time, so we used the front. This is the entry from the back side. Next one, please. So if you can see the front part, it's almost like a showroom that you go down, and then you see a cylinder of glass. So next slide, please. This is one of our very oldest projects. In fact, this was one of the first projects that put CCBA on to its business, 1997. This is in the backwaters of Kerala in Cochin, called Cochin Refineries Headquarters in Maradu. Way back in those days, we had to import Hunter Douglas louvers from Holland. They were not even manufactured anywhere in the vicinity, and no one even knew about it. We knew that with the climatic conditions that we were dealing with in Kerala, the heat and the humidity and all that, so we thought about having a double skin, a double layer, a layer that protects, but yet it is very transparent. So next slide, please. So if you can see it, actually it's very transparent. So we had a beautiful atrium, lending a view into the whole office. The next slide, please. Currently, we are doing in Gurgaon a project for Airbus and for Boeing. This is a project which belongs to Air India. They again took a defunct factory, and they wanted to quickly put something over there as a simulation center, and they could not find land and they could not build a building, so they actually bought a defunct factory, and they gave a challenge to us. Now you have to create something, because when it is a factory, you just can't tear everything down, because there are setbacks, and then there are columns and slabs and all those things. So we had to come out with a simulation center where the Boeing and the Airbus A350 aircrafts simulations will happen, so that they can train the pilots of both pilots of both the Boeing aircrafts as well as the Airbus aircrafts over here. So we did a very nice interiors, because there was very limited choice that you could do with Boeing coming with its own kind of parameters. Next slide, please. Next slide. So now I'm coming to my main presentation. So this is, keep going on, please. So Forbes Marshall is a factory, is a industry which is in the business of manufacturing pistons, and they manufacture a lot of equipment for pipes and water systems and oil kind of pipelines. It began in 1956 at Kasarwadi with its first manufacturing plant, and you could see it, the factory which was built back in those days was like a concrete structure. So the challenge which was given to us by Naushad Forbes and his board members was, we don't want to tear it down completely, but create good architecture out of that. And the other challenge was, on one side we had the Pune-Mumbai highway, and then the back side we had the train line which is from Mumbai to Pune and further. So there were constraints that did not allow us to kind of do certain kind of modifications, especially breaking and then getting the same kind of land parcel to rebuild it. So earlier we built with Forbes Marshall a very large factory in Chakan, which to our great surprise, can you move the slides please? Keep moving on. So this is the Forbes Marshall factory in Chakan. It's a very large 100-meter backside, which is a very large 100 meters by 100 meters factory setup in Chakan. And apparently, when this factory was built, it won the awards at Indian Institute of Architects award ceremony, and it was also given the 8th place out of the 10 places as one of the top places to work. So again, Krone Marshall, what happened? Technology at its best again, huh? Keep moving, keep moving. Keep moving. This is another factory which we have done. Now coming to the Kasarwadi campus. So if you see, this is how the campus was. I mean, when it was given to us a few months back, 15 months back. In 1956, next slide. In 1956, this is how it looked like. The original scheme, keep moving on. The original scheme was this one. This was about like 25,000 square feet. And it kept on getting added. If you see, a new bay was added. Then please keep going on, please. Then we had a small reception added in the lilac or violet, you can see. And then a whole new bay in the pink was added. Keep going. Then again, a new floor was added on the top. And then you can see like and a whole lot of additions and kind of, half facade growth happened. Then ACP cladding happened. Keep going back. So if you look at it, this is where it was given to us. This is where it was, another bay was added, and then this is where it was given to us, and then we had to come out with a whole new solution for this. Can you go to the next slide, please? So as I said, it resulted in patchy work. Next slide. So this is how it looked. Next slide, please. This was the result of 75 years of haphazard development with no master planning and no control on. And of course, they were addressing the growth as it was growing. Keep going, please. The spans, the heights, the construction material, everything was like, of different kind of materials and different scales. Next slide, please. We actually liked this one. If you see, this is a RCC slab with straw framework and reinforcement. It's amazing that like they could use this and it actually works like a nice stable kind of elastic structure that doesn't collapse, but it actually retains it. So at some point we actually retained this one just to show as a museum piece how construction happened in the past. Next slide, please. So we were given these weak columns that we could not put anything on the top. The structure had questionable structural stability, and the spaces were badly lit. There was hardly any kind of airiness. So this is what it was given to us. Next slide, please. So the facades were inconsistent and lacked an identity. It just did not belong to anything. I mean, like, it had no head or tail. It was an animal which was just mashed up and put together. So when this was given to us, and we kind of like understood the issues, and then we wanted to kind of modernize it. We needed to add up to almost 300 new people who are going to work over here. Next slide, please. Thus, the task in front of the architect was to unify the built environment with a commitment to sustainability and functionality. So we adapted a whole new motto, which is called the reviving, adapting, and reusing. So our solutions were: how do we retain the new existing building? How do we reinforce and conserve the skeletal structure? How do we adapt passive sustainable interventions, such as, like, if we could put like double skin, and then could we put something which is going to be allowing the light but not the heat? Then we also thought about how do we unify this entire complex together with one language, then adopting a whole new way of working with functional spaces and interiors that are like seamless, and then minimalizing the entire factor that it just doesn't bark out. So we wanted to make it a very calm and quiet and very salubrious place to work. So next slide. So the design intervention, after structural audit, the parts were some parts were removed because they were not safe for the building. Then we came out with some more interventions. Keep going on. We strengthened the columns, then we introduced new columns, then we kind of cut open certain slabs to bring in the light, then we double glazed the windows so that there is less of noise and less of heat, but you could get the light. Then roof was thermally insulated. Then we introduced what was called thermal radiant cooling in the floors,
so that the air conditioning costs would minimize, although initial investment may be a little bit higher. So all these kind of things, and then we introduced the louvers. Keep going, please. So all this, the violet columns were reinforced, and the orange ones were new colors added at some point, because we wanted to strengthen. We are now putting the second floor on top of that. Next slide, please. So this is how we unified the facade. We removed the ECB panels, we introduced larger windows, and we brought in good light and ventilation. And then we introduced what was called elliptical aluminum louvers to kind of unify the entire project together. Next slide, please. And then finally, we came out with an open plan to reduce the visual barriers so everybody could communicate visually as well as seamlessly in our workspace. Next slide, please. So if you imagine, this was the campus was given to us as a master plan, and how we have transformed that to the next slide. So we have transformed that to get the first building was the first number 1. Then we created a garden, number 9. Then there is an experience center. Number 3 is a cafeteria, which we created. Some more office spaces in number 2. Like this, how we transformed everything. So when this work was carried out, the office was still running. We just could not stop because they were getting so many orders. So it was almost like an open heart surgery, that this facility was like working and still getting repaired at the same time. So the final outcome of this entire exercise for last 15 months that we did was, 1, we didn't tear down the building, but we came out in the same space with much more capacity. Imagine 25,000 square foot to 80,000 square foot, more workforce, and in lesser time, in 15 months, we could do everything. If it was a full new building, it would have taken about 3 years with new permissions and everything. So the next slide, please. So the building was transformed into this manner. Next slide. So this is how it looks inside now. So they have more light coming from everywhere. So there is less consumption of electricity, discussion rooms. Then we created a second floor, and then there is a skylight from the top. If you can see, this is how it was and what was given to the next slide, and it became like this. Next slide, please. This is how it was, and then it was retrofitted like this with radiant cooling on the floor, and then it became like this. So we just used white as the color. We want to be very minimalistic, no dash of this color or that color, and this radiant cooling really reduces the cost of running the air conditioning because it doesn't have to work at the highest capacity. So this is how it looks now. So a lot of light was brought, a whole new way to work. The people started enjoying working over here, and then they were telling us like how it was and how it is now. It brings in a lot of vibrancy, a new way of looking things, and they were very happy because in the end, keep going. So this is how it is. These are the louvers which kind of unify the entire campus. So what I'm trying to say is that it is the responsibility of architects and the other stakeholders in the building that we are given the responsibility to create spaces that lend pride in the people who work there as well as the people who visit them over there. Office spaces are very, very important, and because they are the economic generators of this country. So when we design them, we have to be absolutely responsible, and absolutely we have to be ahead of times. So with this small note, I like to take a break and listen to my other friends who are going to be in 2 panels and then discuss more about the issue. And thank you very much, Indrajit as well as Rashmi, and to all the audience for listening to me patiently. Thank you very much.